Next on the news, New York City on the verge of a breakdown.
Enough is enough. New Yorkers deserve better.
The mayor demanding help yet again with the migrant crisis. But will the White House ever come to the rescue? It's a prison payout, the exorbitant fee the city of New York is paying because of horrendous living conditions on Rikers Island. There's no such thing as retirement for these ladies, the Grandparents Club that's helping Catholic students in and out of school. Then this.
She was so smart, kind, loving. She had so many friends.
Breaking his silence, the father whose daughter was shot and killed for turning into the wrong driveway shares his heartache. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. Cities across the U.S., including New York, where migrants have been pouring in for months, are bracing themselves for even more newcomers. That's because Title 42, which allows border officials to quickly expel migrants who cross illegally, expires on May 11th, meaning the migrant crisis may only get worse.
The national government has turned its back on New York City.
It's nothing new. Mayor Eric Adams has been calling on the federal government to help with the migrant crisis ever since those buses started rolling into the Port Authority from the southern border.
This is one of the largest humanitarian crises that this city has ever experienced. It will impact every service in the city. Why isn't every elected official in Washington, D.C. asking the national government, why are you doing this to New York?
But now Adams has a different ask, and it's something he says the migrants the city has been sheltering have been asking him.
Can we work? Can we work?
Right now, they're not allowed to work, and Adams wants President Joe Biden to change that, to expedite work authorization for asylum seekers, because the number of them in the Big Apple is staggering. According to the city, over 55,000 have gone through the shelter system since last spring. Over 34,000 are currently being housed. More than 14,000 migrant children are in public schools, and over 200 continue to arrive each day. And the mayor fears that number is going to explode once Title 42 expires in May. Meanwhile, despite that border policy, thousands are still crossing into the U.S. Shelters on the southern border are already over capacity, like the one at Sacred Heart Church in El Paso, where migrants have been spotted sleeping outside. The mayor says it's time for Washington to respond.
Enough is enough. New Yorkers deserve better.
City budget officials have projected that the city will spend over $4 billion caring for migrants by the end of next year. Meanwhile, reports say there are up to 40,000 migrants waiting to cross the southern border when Title 42 is lifted. Mayor Adams is also focusing on housing the homeless. He introduced a program called Unlocking Doors. The city will invest $10 million into renovating 400 vacant rent-stabilized apartments, which aren't available at the moment because they need substantial repairs. If people are selected to move in, they'll get a 2-year lease and a voucher to cover 2/3 of their rent. Now to a developing story in Washington. Supreme Court justices have a tight deadline to rule on whether to allow restrictions on the abortion drug Mifepristone to take effect. The pill is available now, but the clock is ticking. Emily Schmidt has more.
The top line from the U.S. Supreme Court Wednesday is clear. Access to a key abortion drug is still in place. Bottom line, more uncertainty. Justice Samuel Alito reset the court's decision clock to 11:59 p.m. Friday, a ruling that moved to suspend the Food and Drug Administration's approval of the abortion drug Mifepristone.
The U.S. Supreme Court today needs to make it clear that any decision to limit access to vital medication, such as Mifepristone, will be based on science, and it will be based on an FDA decision.
We're going to continue to fight. We've been very clear about that.
The Biden administration's Justice Department submitted filings opposing the Trump-appointed Texas judge's ruling, telling the Supreme Court changes would deny lawful access to a drug the FDA deemed a safe and effective alternative to invasive surgical abortion, a finding shared by the medical community as a whole.
We don't want a Texas judge in our bedrooms telling us what to do.
At least one Republican also fears the possibility of wider consequences.
To come back in, I think, a very political way and undermine your drug regulatory agency, I've got concerns about that.
If the Texas ruling is allowed to take effect, it would impact states where abortion is banned and where it is legal. In Washington, Emily Schmidt, Currents News.
The abortion pill battle can have wide-ranging implications, mostly on what drugs can be administered in the U.S. That's because the High Court needs to see if a single judge or panel can overrule the FDA, which would change the way doctors practice medicine. Now, legal experts are seeing this as a major problem that the Supreme Court needs to address.
17 states in the District of Columbia have been ordered to keep Mifepristone access as it is, and a judge who purported to issue a nationwide injunction telling the FDA to change the way that Mifepristone is being administered. And so you do have a conflict, which is why the Supreme Court definitely needs to do something about it.
Since Mifepristone was approved by the FDA in 2000, over 5 million women have used it. As abortion laws vary from state to state, college students are trying to find schools that match their values. According to a new poll by the Lumina Foundation, 60% of adults heading for a higher education say when choosing a school, state abortion laws and restrictions are somewhat important to them. Furthermore, at least 75% of students say their decision to stay at their school was influenced by their state's abortion laws. The poll also said most people preferred a school in a state with less restrictions. New York Governor Kathy Hochul has announced she's stockpiling the drug and forcing health insurers to cover it. The New York State Catholic Conference is fighting this plan, which includes a series of taxpayer-funded abortion expansion actions. To voice your objection to New York's governor, just go to nyscatholic.org and click on the Take Action tab. Across the pond, the Holy See has gifted a relic to King Charles III. The two small wooden fragments are from the cross Christ is believed to have been crucified on and were donated to the king for his coronation. The relics will be inlaid into the Cross of Wales, which will lead the procession into Westminster Abbey on May 6th. Following his coronation, the cross will be shared between the Anglican and Roman Catholic churches in Wales. A group of grandparents at one Catholic academy are on a mission to give back. Good Shepherd Catholic Academy's Grandparents Club is doing more for their students than just picking them up from class or making them lunch. They're ensuring a brighter future for the next generation. Currents News' Jessica Easthope reports.
Let's get started in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Their hands have rocked to sleep, made the best chicken soup, and given the tightest hugs. And now these grandparents are keeping busy, making sure their grandchildren feel their love and support, even when they're at school.
It's all for the benefit of our grandchildren, and our school and our community.
It's a great space.
This is the Good Shepherd Catholic Academy Grandparents Club. There are more than 70 members. Last year, Diane Reynolds noticed most of the people waiting outside to pick kids up from school weren't parents, but grandparents. Fran Heller says the club has given her the chance to get closer to her grandson.
We have so much in common. It's a nice community. And we get to do things not only for our families, but to improve the school.
Their goal is to support the mission of the school. They give back in whatever way they can, whether it's by modeling good citizenship or raising money and collecting donations. They've raised $4,000 so far. At their most recent meeting, the grandparents gathered new and used First Holy Communion dresses and suits for families in need.
Beautiful. The work on the dresses.
Look at this. This has the little slip. It's gorgeous.
The lace on here, collar also.
I can't get over the embroidery.
Everything they do goes back into the school, and Shepherd principal John O'Brien says keeps Good Shepherd a community.
They're the ones who remember what Catholic education was like when it was taken for granted, when everybody went to a Catholic school, when Catholic school was free, and relying on the people who were there before us to help us succeed.
At graduation, the Grandparents Club gives a child who exemplifies compassion and kindness a modest scholarship. They say it helps the students live their faith.
When you put God first, everything else falls into place. It just lifts you up.
Christ is at the center of everything we do, and we want to instill that in our grandchildren as well.
Diane says a grandparent's love is what drives them. That means their work is far from over. In Marine Park, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Gotta love Grandma. What a great club. There's a lot more news headed your way.
He wanted to marry my daughter. And I would have loved that.
A grieving father talks about the life his daughter could have had. Kaylin Gillis's dad breaks his silence after she was killed for pulling into the wrong driveway. A massive payout, the deal the city of New York reached in a lawsuit with inmates. Plus, the clock is ticking. What Democrats and Republicans are saying about each other with the looming debt ceiling deadline.
Holy Week in the Diocese of Brooklyn. Currents News was there to cover it all. From the Palm Sunday procession,
About 100 Catholics took to the streets of Brooklyn,
to the Chrism Mass.
Currents News' Jessica Easthope is in the thick of it all.
There are some priests here celebrating their 65th anniversary of ordination.
The conclusion of the first Lenten pilgrimage.
Bishop Brennan joined pilgrims for a majority of the journey.
Holy Thursday and the Way of the Cross on Good Friday.
The Way of the Cross is making its way over the Brooklyn Bridge.
Plus, powerful testimonies from new Catholics.
I'm blessed to be able to wake up every morning.
And a message of hope from Bishop Brennan.
Christ is alive.
Currents News is there. Happy Easter.
She was so smart, kind, loving. She had so many friends.
A father shares his pain and anguish after losing his daughter, all because she drove into the wrong driveway. For the first time, we're hearing from Andrew Gillis, whose daughter Kaylin was killed in that tragic shooting in upstate New York. It's one of several shootings that have taken place this week, and Andrew wants something done about it. Bryn Gingras has more.
Kaylin's two younger sisters, Lily and Maddie, are gonna have to grow up without their older sister. My wife, Angel, is gonna have to go through the rest of her life without her baby girl.
A grieving father whose last words to his daughter were, "I love you," now overcome with emotion after the man who allegedly killed 20-year-old Kaylin Gillis ordered by a judge to remain behind bars.
She was killed. She's dead. I don't think there's any more serious harm than that.
65-year-old Kevin Monahan is facing a second-degree murder charge. Authorities say Gillis was with her boyfriend, Blake Walsh, and two others, driving on this rural New York road looking for a friend's house last weekend when they lost cell service. With no GPS, they pulled into Monahan's driveway. Police say he fired 2 shots as the car was turning around. Kaylin was hit. Walsh telling NBC, "My friend said they're shooting, go. I tried to step on the gas as fast as I could, and that's when the fatal shot came through. I want to believe it was instant. I'm hoping it was. I'm praying it was."
For this man to sit on his porch and fire at a car with no threat is just angers me so badly. And I just hope to God that he dies in jail.
In court, prosecutors say Monahan, a longtime resident of Washington County, had a reputation.
It is one of being confrontational and hot-tempered.
He has no criminal history and fired the shots because he believed the cars were revving their engines, and Monahan felt threatened. Monahan's attorney adding, quote, "He's a normal human being who was involved in a tragic series of events, and of course he feels horrible that a young girl's life was lost." Gillis, remembered most for her smile, was set to move to Florida with her family at the end of the year. She loved animals, so she planned to study marine biology.
She was so smart. She was so smart, kind, loving. She had so many friends.
And was excited to begin a life with her boyfriend.
He's an amazing young man. He wanted to marry my daughter. And I would have loved that.
Gillis died next to him that night, killed for simply making a wrong turn.
Again, that was Bryn Gingras reporting. We're also hearing from the family of the man accused of shooting a teenager who mistakenly rang his doorbell in Missouri. Andrew Lester's grandson says he's disgusted by what happened.
This is a horrible tragedy. It never should have happened. This country happens over and over again where people get away with killing unarmed, innocent Black people. And I would have had the same energy for any other case like I've had over and over again in this country, like I said. But so it's the right thing to do. People need to speak out and not make any excuses for this kind of behavior and this violence.
He added that he's hoping the victim, Ralph Yarl, has a speedy recovery. And Yarl is recovering as a GoFundMe set up to help cover his medical bills and therapy continues to grow. The amount raised so far, well over $3.3 million. That's thanks to the more than 90,000 people who have donated. Ralph's aunt, who set up the page, sent a message to donors saying, "Thank you so much for loving Ralph." New York City has agreed to pay inmates $53 million in a massive settlement over the conditions of jails at Rikers Island and in Manhattan. Some of the conditions included extremely overcrowded spaces and people being deprived of sunlight. The agreement settles a class action lawsuit covering over 4,000 people held in the jails from March of 2018 to June of last year. Investigators are releasing what they believe are the factors that led to a parking garage collapse in Lower Manhattan. Initial findings show the age of the building and the number of cars parked on the roof deck contributed to the tragedy. The Ann Street garage was originally built in 1925 and obtained its certificate of occupancy in 1957. That document allowed for 5 or more cars on each floor, while footage from the collapse showed as many as 50 cars on the top roof level alone. Meantime, recovery efforts at the garage are ongoing. Rescue teams were finally able to recover the body of the person killed in the collapse. The victim was the manager at the garage and was in his office on the second floor when the higher floors gave way. A supervisor was also in the office at the time of the collapse. They lost contact while they were trying to escape. 6 other garage workers are in the hospital in stable condition. The NYPD is on the lookout for a driver who fled a routine traffic stop by driving through a dining shed. An officer was injured after the black Cadillac took off. It's unclear why the driver was pulled over. Aside from crashing through that shed, the car went up on the sidewalks and hit another vehicle. The Cadillac was found abandoned near Lexington Avenue Wednesday night. Meantime, the officer suffered a concussion and was brought to Bellevue Hospital for treatment. Wall Street is keeping an eye on Washington as the debt ceiling debacle unfolds. Republicans and Democrats are blaming each other for a lack of progress, all while a deadline is fast approaching. John Lawrence has more.
As the U.S. economy moves forward in the post-pandemic era,
recession risks are high and rising, probably pretty close to even over the next year or two.
More skirmishes in the battle over the U.S.'s debt ceiling.
President Biden and Senator Schumer have no right to play politics with the debt calling. Their extreme positions risk provoking the very crisis they claim to want to avoid.
During a speech in Maryland Wednesday, President Joe Biden said the U.S. defaulting on the national debt would be a big mistake.
It would mean cuts in Social Security and Medicare, higher interest rates for things like credit cards, car loans, mortgages.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy released the Limit, Save, Grow Act of 2023 that returns discretionary spending to 2022 levels and limits spending growth to 1% per year over the next 10 years.
House Republicans are taking action to lift the debt limit, to limit government spending, save taxpayers money, and grow the economy.
The White House criticized the proposal, saying a debt ceiling hike shouldn't be linked to a spending bill, just as it wasn't during 3 such votes in the Trump administration.
They want to increase costs for hardworking families, take food assistance and health care away from millions of Americans.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is signing off on a new round of boosters to combat the Omicron COVID-19 variant. People who are 65 and older are now able to get another dose at least 4 months after their first booster. The CDC says this latest shot will help people with weakened immune systems. If you have any questions, it's best to consult with your doctor. The COVID-19 pandemic took a toll on a lot of people's mental health, especially caregivers. As an outlet, a new pandemic art exhibit has opened at a Michigan hospital to give those people a way to process what happened. Some of the pieces are hanging face masks with words of encouragement and quilts. Hospital leaders hope the exhibit will help.
I really wanted to be able to allow our caregivers to have an outlet to process at first the pandemic, and then in our second year what's happened since the pandemic. It happened to coincide with the MSU shooting and tragedy, and so we know that the arts is a great way to reflect and process.
Over 50 artists contributed to the exhibit. Still to come on Currents News, raising the bar, the teen that asked his girlfriend to prom in a big way. And the SpaceX explosion that's being looked at as a big success. What's being seen as a disaster for some is actually a celebration for others. The new SpaceX Starship rocket took off Thursday morning. The launch, which didn't have any crew members on board, blew up after flying for 2 minutes. Despite the drawback, crews are seeing this as a massive success. That's because this new rocket is the most powerful one they've built yet, with CEO Elon Musk saying it will help improve the reliability of future flights. As rocket enthusiasts gathered in Texas, over in Australia, astronomers from around the world gathered to see a rare cosmic sight. A total eclipse of the sun. This celestial wonder happened when the sun, earth, and moon aligned. The total solar eclipse was part of a hybrid eclipse, which happens only a handful of times each century. Well, you couldn't see it from space, but a teenager in Wisconsin used the family farm to ask his girlfriend a question. Tim Elliott tells us about his farm promposal.
Ryan Hazeltine knows his way around the family farm in southwest Janesville.
Lots of years of skill, I suppose.
The junior at Parkview High School in Orfordville grew up on this couple 100-acre farm, and last week Ryan did this.
Every year, I believe these proposals get a little bit more and more carried away, and I think he was looking for something different that nobody had really done, so it was kind of a neat idea.
Robert Hazeltine says his son came to him with the idea.
And we got the good idea to take the tractor and the disc out and write prom ?
With his dad now on board, Ryan got to work. He went out into the field with a tractor and a disc and just eyeballed the whole thing. No measuring, no precise science behind it. Then it was time for the big reveal.
I have a drone that I take farm videos on, so I just took her over there and told her we were going to go, I don't even know, just fly the drone around, and then took it up there and showed her.
His girlfriend, Abby Anderson, said yes.
I was surprised. I had no idea that he did that.
A couple people have told me I set the standard too high to ask their own girlfriends.
This young love will continue to grow thanks to this proposal to prom down on the farm.
So cute. That was Tim Elliott reporting. The young man had a backup plan if the project didn't turn out properly. His idea, try again in a different field. Okay. The Vatican wants to make sure that what's old is new again by teaching restoration to students. Located in the heart of St. Peter's Basilica, the School of Arts and Crafts is an initiative set up to conserve and maintain the iconic Vatican building. Reviving a 200-year-old apprentice system, 20 students currently attend lectures and workshops in the academy. And best of all, the school is free for students. That's great. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.